The Smothers Brothers was a huge hit in the 60s. This occurred because, during an era of heavy censorship, the brothers were forthright about their beliefs. When it came to television shows, this one shattered the mold. They halted their experimentation after showing CBS executives a contentious scene with a strong political message. In what ways did this scene lead to the cancellation of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour? Take a look at the conclusion. Anyone in the know in the 60s knew Tom and Dick Smothers, the Smothers Brothers. Their distinctive blend of folk music and biting wit propelled this musical comedy trio to stardom. Their show was a light-hearted sibling rivalry in which Tom played the role of the carefree, innocent brother, and Dick the role of the serious, stiff brother. That is the essence of the one-of-a-kind comedy program known as the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, which aired on CBS from 1967 to 1971. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour was essentially a variety show that featured musical performances, comedic sketches, and satirical commentary, all delivered with the signature flair and charm of the show. Early episodes featured the brothers performing their trademark comedic routines, which quickly became fans' favorites. Tom frequently made a fool of himself by silly interruptions during folk songs, and he often misunderstood topics before beginning sketches or introducing special guests. The line that made him famous was "Mom always liked you best." It was a catchy expression that made him popular and captured the essence of their comedic tension. Comedic sketches, monologues, musical performances, and repeat appearances by characters were all a part of each show. This program was similar to classic variety shows, but it incorporated contemporary elements that appealed to a younger demographic. Despite occasional rule violations, the show's comedic value has always rested on its clever writing and the brothers' cordial relationship. One of the show's high points was the musical guests, who sang Simon and Garfunkel, Steve Martin, Jefferson Airplane, Harry Belafonte, and The Who were among the famous guests at the Smothers Brothers show. Typically, they featured up-and-coming artists that other reality shows passed over due to their political leanings or the genre of music they produced. Visually and structurally, the show was also unique. In contrast to other variety shows, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour features a carefree, informal atmosphere and dynamic, mood-altering color schemes. Every time the brothers would address the audience or poke fun at the show's format, they would break the fourth wall, which added to the enjoyment for everyone. Popularity of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour peaked during a watershed moment in U.S. history. Traditional, safe fare dominated television at the time. The Smothers Brothers presented an alternative viewpoint, a variety show aimed at a younger demographic that would resonate with them through witty banter, catchy tunes, and an easygoing defiance of authority. It wasn't until before the show that the Smothers Brothers gained fame in the folk music and comedy communities. What made the show so endearing was the dynamic between the siblings. Viewers adored their amiability, spontaneity, and warmth. Younger viewers, who tended to have a better grasp of cultural references, were a major factor in the show's meteoric rise to fame. American youth were undergoing a cultural transformation towards the tail end of the 1960s, which impacted their perspectives on music, politics, and societal mores. In contrast to other popular shows, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour embraced this growing schism. The show's experimental music and offbeat style, in addition to its humorous takes on current events, demonstrated the tastes of the younger generation. Comedy variety shows catered to the youth of the time, while traditional variety shows tended to play standard music. Showing appreciation for their ethnic identity and musical styles was the greatest way, according to those seeking more than simply entertainment for the show. New songs weren't the only thing that made the show stand out. The writing and humorous sketches were also major factors. Members of the writing staff, including Rob Reiner and Steve Martin, who would go on to star in the show, contributed witty satire, absurdist humor, and biting social commentary. Even though the subjects were initially kept within reasonable bounds, the writing's originality and freshness resonated with viewers who desired more from their television. A large number of the show's writers were also performers, and it featured numerous young, up-and-coming actors. They were able to compensate for the show's shortcomings and its older guest stars by writing stories that younger audiences would enjoy. In the 60s, the Smothers Brothers revolutionized television, and everyone knows it. Although it began as a standard black and white variety show, it eventually expanded the boundaries of what is possible in comedy. A lot of problems were caused because the boys spoke their minds frequently. A well-liked variety show, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, featured musical performances, political commentary, and comedic skits. Nevertheless, the show's daring approach generated significant controversy, leading to its eventual cancellation. Although the show was well received by younger viewers, older viewers were not fond of it because of the way it addressed serious social issues. What parts of the show were so controversial that they led to its cancellation? The show's cancellation would be attributed by CBS to its criticism of the wealthy and its endorsement of anti-war and anti-civil rights activists. It is now par for the course for comedians to poke fun at serious social issues such as governmental dysfunction. However, things were different in the 1960s. One of the major scandals involved folk singer Pete Seeger. Only the Smothers Brothers were interested in having Seeger on their show, as he had been banned from network TV since the 1950s. The song Waist Deep in the Big Muddy, which he wrote in protest of President Lyndon B. Johnson's decision to initiate the Vietnam War, was requested of him, Johnson. Seeger returned to perform the entire song on television after viewers complained that CBS had attempted to edit the performance. Another formidable adversary was Joan Baez, who co-starred on the program. David Harris, her late husband, had been imprisoned for declining to enlist in the military, and she spoke about him during the conversation. Critics of the CBS report viewed the omission of the reason for Harris's incarceration as censorship and were thus outraged by the decision. In another episode, they spoke with the legendary comedian David Steinberg, but his hilarious lectures created yet another issue. Many were enraged by an act involving Moses and the bush that burned. Concerned about the content, CBS declined the Smothers Brothers' request to have him appear in another episode. Comedy shows couldn't legally mock presidential elections back then, but that's exactly what this show did. As a regular feature, they lampooned Republican campaigns with comedian Pat Paulson's satirical presidential bid, demonstrating how absurd politics can be. CBS grew increasingly dissatisfied with the show's content as a result of these issues, and eventually became more stringent. They weren't the only ones, though. Many viewers also complained to CBS whenever controversial episodes of The Smothers Brothers aired. Criticism of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour was common. Although it was well liked by younger audiences due to its progressive themes and biting humor, many adults did not enjoy it. Older, more conservative viewers in particular are resistant to change, which is why this happens. A large number of viewers took their grievances with the show's split to CBS. Not only were there offensive scenes and ideas on the show, but the way the TV network dealt with control issues was also a big reason in its eventual cancellation. After much back and forth, CBS decided to cancel the show instead of continuing to defend it. There were a lot of boundaries that the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour broke at CBS. Because of this, the network was constantly removing or cutting content that was deemed too controversial for television at the time. However, viewers were understandably upset and furious with CBS when they discovered segments of an interview or performance were missing, believing that crucial information was being concealed. The brothers had just finished filming an episode, but CBS aired a rerun of an earlier episode because it had been delivered late in March 1969. The unaired episode turned out to be an interview with Joan Baez, who had composed a song in honor of her husband's incarceration for dissenting against the draft. The reason her husband was jailed was left out when CBS changed the show and let it run. Its removal infuriated viewers because they were already familiar with the plot and the reasons for her husband's arrest. This was the subject of many complaints sent to CBS. Conversely, conservative viewers were always complaining whenever the Smothers Brothers brought up a controversial topic, and they wanted control. Satirical attacks on religious and political figures were commonplace in the comedic works of David Steinberg. Hundreds of letters expressing dissatisfaction from viewers followed. Many felt he had no business being on television. However, there were many who battled for free speech, which sparked debates over the extent to which it could be practiced on television. The advanced nature of the show turned off some audiences, particularly in the South. As a result, CBS stations in those regions received complaints regarding the program. Critics claimed it was slanted in favor of liberals and touched on touchy subjects like anti-war sentiment and civil rights movements. As a result, several local CBS stations used editing software to remove or alter content they found objectionable. Therefore, the show may have varied in each area, leading to diverse audience reactions. Despite numerous negative reviews, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour was still watched by young people. Unlike other TV shows, the brothers' boldness in discussing important social issues on the show was well received. Having said that, the showrunners and CBS had disagreements over the show's content because of all this. This is the spark that ignited the feud between the Smothers Brothers and CBS, leading to the cancellation of the show and a subsequent lawsuit. The Smothers Show aired in the 1960s to a younger, more liberal audience. Censorship issues arose rapidly for the Smothers Brothers on CBS due to their socially conscious comedy. The network instructed the Smothers to submit completed and ready-to-air shows 10 days in advance of the 1968-1969 season premiere. This would allow the judges to make changes to the show before it airs. Season 1 premiered with Harry Belafonte singing "Lord Don't Stop the Carnival" amidst the mayhem of the 1968 Democratic National Convention. Along with 2 lines of a joke regarding their main rival, Bonanza, CBS eliminated the entire thing. The brothers continued to bicker over what was on the show on multiple occasions when CBS cut segments before they could air. The show's many flaws eventually became too much to bear. Additionally, local stations chose to remove controversial acts or comments. By removing certain types of content, such as the interview with David Steinberg and Joan Baez, the network was able to preserve crucial information from the program. The show was picked up for the 1969-1970 season by CBS despite the Smothers Brothers and the network's strained relationship. When it returned, many were surprised because they had assumed it would be scrapped. Anyhow, CBS was monitoring every story and guest very closely. In contrast to his brother Tom, who would describe himself as confident and extroverted in 2019, Dick Smothers remained somewhat reserved. Timetables and editing regulations were repeatedly disregarded by him. The brothers rehired David Steinberg for another preaching act, so CBS refused to air an episode that was supposed to air a month later. Keep in mind that CBS did not want a repeat of the hundreds of angry letters that were sent in response to the first Burning Bush lecture. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour was permanently removed from airwaves following the uproar this scene caused. Strange things occurred despite CBS rejecting the taped show. Although it was common practice at the time, the episodes airing on CTV in Canada prior to its release in the United States was strange due to the regulations. The directors convened an emergency meeting to discuss the next steps. in light of the recently shown tape, which contained an unprecedentedly strong political message. The announcement that the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour would not be continuing shocked everyone. So the show was abruptly canceled by the network's president and CEO, William S. Paley, who claimed that the Smothers Brothers had failed to meet the pre-air delivery dates stipulated in their contract. Quickly replacing the show with Hee Haw, another executive stated that it was evident the brothers were not prepared to adhere to the content standards set by CBS. Given the show's massive success and 23-season run, CBS likely made the right decision. Despite the show's popularity and its recent renewal for a second season, 1969197, it was ultimately canceled. Its conservative audience and CBS censors were both irritated by the show's strong political content, leading many to believe that CBS had taken it down. Lots of problems and rumors ensued because of this. Tom and Dick Smothers wasted no time suing CBS for contract violation as a result of this. Opponents of the program claimed that the network's decision to cancel it was an attempt to conceal the show's controversial content. They were not alone. Many others also believed CBS was out to fire them. After a 4-year legal battle, the Smothers Brothers finally prevailed in 1973 when they took their case to the federal court. The court awarded them $776,300.00 as damages. At a difficult period for American television, the lawsuit demonstrated the potential conflict between network control and artistic repression. Despite failing to revive the show after 4 years, the case did manage to collect payment. Both the brothers' concern for creative freedom and the precedent it set for debates over broadcast control in the future were served by this. It was primarily about the point of the case, the brothers said when discussing the lawsuit, and they weren't given a lot of money. The brothers documented their journey in a book at the end. In 2002, a documentary titled Smothered: The Censorship Struggles of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour examined the impact of the show on free speech and television history. On the occasion of the show's 50th anniversary in 2019, the Smothers Brothers discussed the show's influence and the challenges of hosting a contentious program. In the words of Dick Smothers, "Don't tell a comedian not to say a certain word. For sure, they'll do it." Smothers went on to say that much of what was considered controversial back then is now considered mundane on television. The case and cancellation highlighted the challenges faced by artists in a conservative media landscape. The Smothers Brothers' resistance to control remains a significant moment in the history of American television. A lot of people believe that the Smothers Brothers revolutionized television show production, which allowed Saturday Night Live to happen. Despite the short run, just 3 years before CBS canceled it in 1970, the show was notorious for its rule breaking. During that time, the brothers were known to be quite outspoken about their opinions on politics and pop culture. The show started out like many others of its era, but it broke censorship rules and opened the door for modern comedic and entertainment shows to address specific issues. There were 3 things that the Smothers Brothers poked fun at that were unusual for television at the time. The Vietnam War, racism, and the president were among them. Their introduction of the hippie lifestyle to mainstream television was also groundbreaking. Featured politically active acts that other TV stations didn't show. The show allegedly paved the way for others. Buffalo Springfield, Simon Garfunkel, and Pete Seeger are among them. Another notable example is Steve Martin. His rise to prominence as a Saturday Night Live host coincided with his success as an actor and director in the United States. His breakthrough came when he was a writer for the Smothers Brothers Comedy Show. He rose to prominence as a stand-up comedian in the 70s. The Smothers Brothers show has contributed significantly to the fact that people are still mentioning him. We still look to the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour as a model of the importance of artistic freedom and the transformative power of humor. Their battles with network censors paved the way for future TV shows to discuss social and political issues more openly. For the final episode of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, a contentious tape was sent to the Canadian station. In it, there was a shocking line that many interpreted as a criticism of then-President Nixon. In this show, Steinberg delivered another one of his fiery, satirical speeches. His comment, "Sorry, Mr. President, take your army and go," appeared to draw parallels between Nixon and the ancient pharaoh. He went on to say that Moses was similar to modern-day peace activists. CBS promptly canceled the show upon realizing it was critical of Nixon. Tom Smothers, the less careful sibling, denied the accusation and refused to remove the section, leading to the cancellation of the show. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour may have ended, but the brothers continued to appear in films. Shown in 1970 was an hour-long special titled The Return of the Smothers Brothers. Guests included Peter Fonda and Glenn Campbell, and the show was written by Tom Smothers, David Steinberg, and Bob Einstein. After a successful run on ABC, they transferred their comedy show to NBC in 1975. They returned to CBS in 1988, but by then the comedy show had lost its audience appeal. Their forthrightness and humor on the show remained in the minds of many viewers. Due to the Writers Guild of America strike in 1988, which forced the brothers to do their own work, the revival only lasted for one season, even though it brought back Pat Paulson and had some new actors. The show was remade in 1993 and aired on the popular E! Network, which featured the Smothers Brothers' opening numbers and updated interview footage. The best of Season 3 was released on DVD after 50 years, so fans could see them again. In fact, Tom passed away in 2023, but Dick has not yet passed away. Even after all these time has passed, people remember them.